Hey everybody, I want to do now some videos getting into specific aspects of the Phoenix Rising documentary that I wanted to zero in on. As always, my usual disclaimer, I am Team Marilyn Manson, hoping that there will be a resolution in his favor when all of this comes to court as a result of his lawsuit. But that said, I don't want to be dismissive of the gravitas of the situation or of the accusations at hand, and I don't want to seem insensitive to survivors of domestic abuse and that sort of thing. Obviously, there are no perfect victims. Obviously, in every legal proceeding, everybody is always going to present a version that presents themselves in the best possible light. That said, we will still ultimately come to a consensus on who is right and who is wrong in all of this. I am, again, cautiously optimistic for Manson, but I am making a conscious effort to let the facts play out as they present themselves. Now, one disclaimer that I always have is that regardless of how you feel about this situation, I think it is incumbent on all of us to be sympathetic towards Evan Rachel Wood, because she is in a situation where either she has been abused and manipulated by Marilyn Manson, or she has been abused and manipulated by Ilma Gore, or both. So that's the nature of it. So that's my position on that. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and this will be a fairly short video, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was that there was an incident that's discussed in Phoenix Rising where Marilyn Manson was in an interview, a phone interview, ostensibly to talk with a journalist about his new album. But this was during the time when public speculation was starting to swirl around the identity of Evan Rachel Wood's abuser being Marilyn Manson. So the journalist in question, instead of focusing on his new album, took Marilyn Manson to task about Evan Rachel Wood. And as soon as the journalist brought up Evan Rachel Wood, Marilyn Manson hung up on him. I believe this was for Revolver magazine, if I remember correctly. But the journalist hung up on him. And of course, they ran hog wild with Marilyn Manson hangs up on reporter after questions about Evan Rachel Wood. This is where, and then in the documentary itself, they portrayed this as Marilyn Manson was cornered with the truth, and he freaked out and ran away and hid, and he's on the run, and they've got him cornered and all of this. No. Once again, Marilyn Manson, whatever he did, or may have done, or is alleged to have done behind the scenes, his public behavior in all of this has been perfect, has been flawless, has been completely professional. My cat was caught in a plastic bag for a minute. I almost had to get her out of it. Anyway, his behavior, his public behavior has been perfect in all of this. The Phoenix Rising documentary culminates with this whole ominous arc of saying, as soon as we go public with this accusation, Manson's going to freak out. There's no telling what he's going to do. We're all in danger, blah, blah, all of this stuff setting up. And then it ends with her sending out the announcement of the accusation, or sending out the accusation. And so they were, like, I guess, banking on a public response from Marilyn Manson that they never got. No, immediately when these accusations came out, he put out a single press statement, went completely quiet, and let his lawyer handle any other interactions necessary with the press. He dropped out of public life immediately. Everything that has been in the press about him since then, about his goings-on unrelated to this, has been the result of paparazzis and that sort of thing. People leaking information to the press about him working with Kanye West, that sort of thing. But he has dropped out of public life completely. He has gone completely silent, and he has maintained silence, and that certainly takes an extraordinary amount of self-control given everything that's going on about him in the press, and Evan Rachel Wood being able to run hog wild this way. He has handled it perfectly. And that hanging up on that journalist was also him handling it perfectly. Because, see, the thing is, we live in a culture that whose the foundational basis for its public discourse is scandal. We feed on scandal. Scandal is the soylent green of the culture we now live in. And people don't think about what how journalism is actually supposed to work and how people are actually supposed to interact with the press and how the press is actually supposed to function. What that journalist did there when they brought Marilyn Manson into an interview under the auspices of of talking about his new album, and then hitting him with unrelated questions, potentially scandalous unrelated questions. What they did there, they could potentially have faced very real legal action from him for doing. Now, it's probably not worth his time to pursue it, but they put themselves in a position where they could face very real action. You cannot do that. That is an extraordinary violation of journalistic ethics to bring someone into an interview under false pretenses and attempt to put them in a scandalous situation or confront them with things that they were not informed they would have to be topics they were not informed they would be discussing, especially ones that could portray them in a bad light. So he could have taken legal action against them for that. The position he's in is as a musician talking to a magazine like I said, I believe it was Revolver, but it was a fairly major music magazine. He needs magazines like Revolver to stay friendly to him, so they have him over a barrel that way. So the best thing he can do is hang up. And that was the right thing to do, is hang up. Because here's the thing. What they were looking for was something to use against him, as evidenced by the fact that he hung up was used against him. But no, if you are a public figure and you find yourself put in a situation where you have been brought into an interview under false pretenses, the immediate thing you should do is get out of it. And he handled that perfectly. He did not say anything. He didn't get angry. He didn't get upset with them. He hung up the phone. Done. Out of there. And they can go have fun with, oh my God, he hung up on us. What's he hiding? But he handled that correctly. He did not, anything he said there would have inflamed the situation. Even if he flat out denied it, it would have inflamed the situation. Anything he said would have inflamed that situation. And so that was absolutely the right thing to do. And that's the thing is, the big reveal in all of this, or one of the big reveals in all of this, is what they have presented about his character in the documentary. They've tried to portray him as someone who is out of control of his behavior, that is someone that has no self-control, that will lash out violently and viciously and attack people left and right. And they're saying in the documentary, we're so scared this is going to happen. We have no idea what he's going to do when he's backed into a corner. All of this, what he's done has been to behave perfectly, and that. My God, even if that were purely just a cold and calculating publicity move on Marilyn Manson's part, the fact that he was able to do that from a standpoint of being cold and calculating proves that he has more self-control than what they portray him as in the documentary. Once again, the person, as I've said before, the person who does start lashing out the person who has been lashing out publicly like they've been backed into a corner is Ilma Gore, who has now found herself to be distanced from Evan Rachel Wood, is being quietly removed from the whole thing because she has been lashing out publicly, because she has even said things that confirmed her ownership of the materials that she was accused of creating in Marilyn Manson's lawsuit. So, once again, that's a small thing from the documentary that is extremely problematic. And that problematic word is something that gets kicked around a lot. Gets kicked around a lot in modern discussions, where people say, "Oh, well, this program I was watching made an unfunny joke about a group of people that I'm sensitive towards, and so that was problematic." It's like, no, actually, you're taking offense that something is not a problem that needs to be solved. But something that is problematic is when an ostensibly honest and sincere documentary demonstrates itself over and over again to be acting in a very poor light and really setting itself up, banking on some sort of public response from Marilyn Manson that never happened. The very fact that the whole documentary is built around anticipating a horrible public response from Marilyn Manson that never, some horrible public retaliation from Marilyn Manson that never occurred, is an extraordinary slap in the face at the validity of the documentary and of the character the character that it presents of Marilyn Manson. The sad reality is, in closing, I'll say the sad reality is that there are journalists out there, and this is something that I was not fully aware of until I started giving interviews, but there are journalists out there who think it's their job to fuck you up. They see themselves as muckraking activist journalists who think that every article they write is going to be the Frost Nixon tapes, or is going to be all the President's Men, or something like that. They've put themselves in that mindset, and as such, they think that their job is to expose the horrible truth of every person that they're talking to. I had a situation years ago where, you know what, I'm not even going to talk about it. No, not going to bring me into this. But suffice it to say, I've encountered horrible journalists like this myself. I don't need to revisit my awful past. But the point being, there are journalists out there who are like that. There are journalists out there who think it's their sole job and their sole purpose to fuck you up. And if you are in the entertainment industry, if you're any kind of public persona whatsoever, you cannot be you cannot be naive about that. So hanging up on that reporter that lured him into an interview under false pretenses was absolutely the right thing to do. Period. Case shut.